This video spawned from me watching The Batman 2022 and desperately hoping the sequel is not Barry Keoghan Joker. Please, like, crossing my fingers that prison scene was deleted for a reason. Please, God, let it be a fake out. The ending gave me hope for a take on Batman that is, like, truly unconcerned with catering to a power fantasy and one that focuses on hope. Robert Pattinson, I believe in you. I'm gonna tell you right now, I agree with the dozens of video essays out there that say Batman shouldn't kill and shouldn't use guns and should be kind. They are right. They should say it. I'm gonna say it again later, but I'm gonna add a few other things too. Part 1. So, some stories are power fantasies, and I think that's fine. Escapist fiction has its place. You know, I think Batman stories can be a little escapist, but I don't think Batman stories should ever directly be a power fantasy. I think the core of the character and what he does just doesn't lend itself to that kind of story. I think Batman should be cool, maybe a cool fantasy, but not a power fantasy if it's gonna be escapist. And by this, I mean that his actions and his style and his discipline and his strength of mind should be the focus, not annihilating scores of goons. If a Batman story is fixated on physical power, like setting off bombs and being an MMA fighter and bulldozing through his problems, I don't like it. I think Batman should be, like, cool and stylish, and I don't think that operates as, like, a pure power fantasy. Batman has always been about making other people's lives better and easier, about making Gotham a good place to live, however successful he may be at that. Like, he doesn't kill. It's so important he doesn't kill, and we already said this. And also that he doesn't use guns, because Batman believes in life being precious and worth protecting. That no matter how evil someone is, he doesn't see himself as having the right or authority to take their life away. I appreciated that one little line in The Batman where Batman tells Gordon, no guns, and Gordon's like, yeah man, whatever. Because, like, even though that's a small moment, it does establish some loyalty to the core of Batman's character and code that some other versions of the characters don't have. A fundamental aspect of his character is also that he's a single father of 5, but that also doesn't fit into a sexy power fantasy. And we'll get to this later, but I'm putting a pin in it now, so be ready. Things like kindness and justice and hope are all relevant to the core of Batman. Like, it's not just violence or vengeance, he's thematically a lot more complicated than that. Batman is very kind to children. Canon. He has a soft spot, that's why he keeps adopting them. Batman is cool, but he's not cool because of the suit or the car or because he hits people. It's his character, his moral code, his intelligence, his compassion in the face of the worst of humanity without compromising justice that is cool. Him learning on the fly how to be a father because he thought it was the right thing to do, that's cool. Don't get me wrong, I think the art direction absolutely makes him cooler. The silhouette, the car, the rain, the smog, Gotham, but I think it needs the substance behind it. If he's just an angry guy who loves violence and hits people and is badass for the sake of it, there's no discipline in that. And Batman is all discipline. Insane discipline. I'm so tired of gritty or realistic Batman. I do not love the Nolan films, sorry. I like Begins and Dark Knight, okay? I do not rock with Rises, much like everyone else. I think they lose the heart of the character and follow it up with lukewarm art direction. Plus, they say half the names wrong. But that's not what this video is about. I like when Batman cooks up a bizarre scheme that somehow miraculously works, or wins a fight without taking a single hit, or vanishes in a completely implausible way. And on that note, I don't think writers make Batman stealthy enough. They keep turning him into a tank. He's like darkness in the night, and he has no joint mobility. Batman media, like Batman the Animated Series or the Batman Animated, where he is shrouded in his cloak like Dracula, are peak. I love it. I love it when he's all cape. But, like, he's a stealth-based combatant, right? Or at least he's supposed to be, or I think he should be. Pattinson's Batman does a little bit of the stealth fear thing, a little more, and I appreciate that. Plus, issue 19 of Gotham Knights is just a bunch of low-level criminals scaring themselves because they think the Batman is there, but he's not, and they foil themselves purely because of how scared they are of the fact that he might show up. Ben Affleck just fucking shoots people. Out of Bale, Affleck, and Pattinson's portrayals, only Pattinson's Batman doesn't, like, literally fucking kill people, so too many people who make live-action Batman media are weirdly at war with the more fantastical elements inherent to the source material, and I think that's why they refuse to include Robin constantly, because his narrative function balances out Batman and keeps him grounded and not too dark. But for some reason, these people are allergic to levity and see anything that could potentially make a Batman story less gritty as something to be avoided. To them, Robin is silly, so he's axed. He's not in anything. Personally, I don't think something has to be all grimdark to be cool. For the record, I'm not really in support of full-on camp Batman to address the opposite extreme, with the exception of the Lego Batman movie. That shit rocked. And it rocked because even though it was a different, sillier take on the character, it had heart and understood the character of Batman.
Why is Master Dick dressed like that?
How dare you tell me how to parent my kid I just met? To the Batmobile!
Hot diggity dog!
I think Lego Batman also really understood that Batman doesn't really like being alone and gets lonely while being faithful to the heart of the character, and Detective Comics issue 1017 does this well too, with the whole bit where he calls Aquaman to fuck around because it's just like him and the dogs and he's lonely. You know, he cannot admit that he wants friends. As for the whole guns and killing people thing we keep running into, one, I'm not sure why people keep putting guns on his vehicles as if that makes it not count somehow. You're still shooting people. And two, it's not just a him thing with guns. He doesn't like when anyone allied with him uses guns or kills either, as mentioned earlier in the Batman scene with Gordon. He is so wildly devastated by the idea that Cass may have killed someone in Batgirl from 2000, openly admires the way that she uses the minimum amount of force she can get away with when fighting the bad guys. And he also gets very upset with Jason and Damian respectively in their stories when they use excessive force, like not even killing people, which they also do, but also just being too violent when it's not strictly necessary. It like bothers him. Like, don't get me wrong, he doesn't mind a little enthusiasm, but when they go over that line, it bothers him a lot. He gets mad at them. It's to the point that in order to narratively represent Jason's rejection of Batman when he becomes Red Hood, he starts using guns and killing people. It's a massive point of conflict between the two. And again, Ben Affleck just fucking shoots people, so you can see why this would be a problem. Part 2. Gotham is also a character. Make Gotham gothic. It's in the name, for the love of God. In any Batman story, Gotham is a character too, and it needs that gothic art deco noir flair. If you make a Batman movie and don't pay attention to Gotham, I hate you, sorry. But seriously, like, having all these freaks run around in a normal ass city just doesn't work in my opinion, because when you see a regular city, you immediately assume regular city rules, and these freaks don't make sense. It's detrimental to a suspension of disbelief because they seemingly exist in our world but don't follow our rules. If Gotham is unique and different from our world and has that gothic noir flavor, the Batman and the freaks he fights makes sense in the setting and within the rules of the world. Verisimilitude or whatever, the lifelikeness or believability of a story that like fancy film people talk about. Batman and the Freak Gang operate within the setting and rules of Gotham as a city, so it feels true or more true even if it's not realistic, versus when Gotham is a normie ass city, Batman looks goofy as hell. I don't understand the instinct some of these writers, directors have to just plop Batman in the real world. He doesn't fit. You just yoinked him from a thematically and aesthetically rich world and put him in Chicago? I hate you and your pointless realism. To give an example of something with good art direction, the Batman animated has a little sound cue when Bats shows up on screen, which I like. Robin has one too. Plus Bats is often just like a pillar of cape, which as we've established I am fond of. And the opening is fire. Nails the Gotham mood in a way appropriate for kids. You know, it's still a kid show, but like it's doing Gotham, you know? Also, Gotham's very green in this show, especially in the first 2 seasons. I don't know why.
The only one with a lackey. Who's the lackey now, huh? Sure.
The Batmobile being a tank is stupid, we all know this. I like the swanky art deco fuck-ass limo, bring it back. And I think the skyline is very important too. The skyline in, like, again, Nolan's Batman literally just looks like Chicago. Versus even in, like, Lego Batman, it kind of kills the Gotham look, especially in the opening. And also Wayne Manor. I need Wayne Manor to be, like, Dracula levels of dramatic. This is a story where we can really put in the sauce and the flair. We have to do it. The visual language is very important. On that note, the visual language of the Batman 2022, not the animated one, that's where it's at. House just being like literally Dracula's castle, that's what I wanted. Part 3. I fucking hate the Joker. The Joker only works if there are other characters surrounding him. You know, Jason Todd, Barbara Gordon, Harley Quinn. I don't want to see that worm all by his lonesome, okay? Comic book characters are very malleable, and I know this. They change so much over time, and they're just, you can reinterpret them a lot of different ways, and we do. But they all have a sort of core to their character, aside from their names and their general design. Batman's got dead parents via gun. He's a billionaire, he's got Alfred, no guns, no killing, he doesn't do that. A character like Catwoman, she's got the cat motif, she's sexy, morally gray, anti-hero kind of thing going on. Joker, in my opinion, the original core of his character was pure, unsympathetic, irredeemable evil with no backstory or motive, which is notably, thematically, opposed to Batman. Batman is dictated by his past, consumed by his backstory, it's his whole reason for existing, and the Joker doesn't have a past or backstory. Nothing. He's just here now. I think when that's the point, they're narrative foils, and Batman believes in rehabilitation, but there is no man under the clown makeup, no history, no past, and that's why he's difficult. Every other rogue has a past motivation. Joker is selfish, Batman is selfless. Joker is petty and personal, Batman is focused on the bigger picture no matter the cost. Joker kills and abuses the people who work for him, Batman treats them like family, etc. In my very humble opinion, if you try and make the Joker something other than that, you lose the core, and the character isn't really the Joker anymore. Like, I know that we're doing serious, tragic Joker in the last couple decades, and listen, it's not for me. If it's for you, that's fine. You can ignore me. But I don't like it at all. I don't like taking the Joker. Like, there's so many other villains that could fill that role better. I think any and all Joker stories, if they're going to be made at all, thin ice, should be written by someone who hates the Joker, like cannot stand the character. I've had enough of people with weird kinships with the Joker trying to make him cool. He has to suck. Someone who hates him will prioritize a good narrative over doing the I'm the Joker, baby shit, okay? Again, thin ice, but I like Mark Hamill's Joker because it serves more petty, fucked up guy than the more sane, meticulous portrayals done by other actors. Suicide Squad, the Joker, even Heath Ledger's Joker all had a very clear streak of sanity and planning. I think that returning to the concept that the reason the Joker is hard to catch isn't because he has elaborately well-planned schemes, but that because his actions are so unpredictable, it's hard to guess his next move, would be better. That said, we'll see. The Joker's so easy to fuck up, in my opinion. The story becomes so boring and predictable and self-obsessed with the Joker so easily the more calculated portrayals work, with Heath Ledger's performance specifically. Like, I can't argue that he knocked that out of the park, but everybody wants to be like him now, as we know. And I can support making the character smart or clever, but I do not ride for calculated Joker. Everybody has been trying so hard to make the Joker serious, and can we not see the irony there? He's way too petty and prideful to stick to some kind of master plan, to me. I guess I should quantify a lot of this with to me, because I know comic book characters not that consistent in their characterization. So, but like, are we forgetting that he killed Jason Todd for fun? Kind of for shits and gigs. He is brimming with whimsical, jovial cruelty and not calculated malice. Plus, he's never funny. They always make him loud or edgy, but they never make him actually funny. Even in the Lego movie, he was funnier than he usually is, but most of the other characters outshined him in the comedy department, ironically.
As I took you under mine.
Alfred, you've been watching way too many Lifetime movies and drinking Chardonnay.
It's Pinot Grigio, sir.
Whatever it is.
But all that's if you do it at all. Me personally, I'm sick and tired of hearing from that freak, and there are so many other interesting antagonists you could reinterpret and get creative with. The Joker has been done good, he's been done bad, he's been done worse, and it's been done mediocre. Enough already. Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, Clayface, Killer Moth, Condiment King. This is not a joke. The possibilities here are bountiful. If you just reinterpret and breathe some new life into any number of Batman villains, you can get something way more interesting and creative. All my comic book fans out there, I know we are dying for a genuine and sincere telling of a Mr. Freeze story on the big screen, and I agree. Also though, I think a sincere effort at Poison Ivy could be very good as well, because you'd have to make her more complicated than just sexy plant lady, which does seem hard for a lot of writers. It can be done. The Batman animated 2004 season 3 episode 1 and 2 actually does something interesting with Poison Ivy that I like. It makes Ivy more of a Batgirl villain than a Batman one, and it simultaneously is a reimagining of the Batgirl origin that stays true to the original, but this version leans into the eco-extremist vibe instead of just evil, sexy plant lady, which I like. It makes her motivation make a lot more sense. Also, speaking of the Batman villains, 2004 animated, season 3 episode 11 has actually kind of a funny bit where Joker wants his own sidekick, and the first place he looks is a shitty stand-up open mic night. Which is a very funny bit in my opinion. It was season 3, so it was like 2005 or something, and even back then the Joker was indoctrinating unfunny teenage white boys. For clarity's sake, the kid does stand up to Joker and say he doesn't want to kill people, so it has a happy end. Now, I think if you really went at it for real, you could make a good Killer Moth story too. Like, hear me out. Even in World, he's considered stupid and a joke, and they do play with that in Batgirl Year 1 and a bit in Robin Year 1. But I think you could adapt that kind of story into a larger scale. It's got the baked-in themes of the dangers of writing off someone because they're sort of silly in a setting like Gotham, and how like that person could actually be dangerous, or how a setting like that inspires normal freaks to just like do whatever. I want to see someone do the Moth Copter justice. Him and his moth whatever bit in comparison to the bat whatever bit is so funny. I love it. Like, you've heard of the bat plane? Get ready for the moth screen. I also think we could benefit from leaning into the goofy and cute vibe. Less washed up middle-aged loser and more funny little guy, you know? I know that doesn't fit the tone most people want in their Batman stories, but I fucking love him, okay? But there really is substance to the little guy. I like him equally as a guy who thinks he's really a moth for real. Yes!
The light! The light!
Oh, yes! Oh, man. And as a guy who picked a thematic gimmick in response to Batman because he wants to be somebody important. But the latter arguably has more to work with narratively. The fact that he's also not totally sold on cruelty or killing people either, especially in Batgirl Year 1, but just wants to be someone, and given that he's from Gotham, this is how it ended up going, is also something that contributes to making the setting feel alive and intertwined with the characters from that place. Killer Moth could not exist anywhere other than Gotham, and he has that whole aspiration to be like Batman for the supervillains. In terms of his design, I like the bucket helmet and the huge eyes and the stripy pants and the pointy wings and the fur pop collar. I need him to look like that. Basically his Batgirl Year 1 design, but with a fuzzy collar. Do you guys see the vision here? It's really hard out here for a Killer Moth fan. He has some good comic appearances, and by that I mean like 2, but he's only really cameoed in a handful of animated media, and half of those were the Lego games, no live action. And Teen Titans Killer Moth doesn't count to me. Like, I like him in the show, he's a good villain, but he's not my Killer Moth. And to circle back around to Condiment King, I'm dead serious. He doesn't have to be a main antagonist or anything, but I think he's so representative of how Gotham develops a culture of supervillains, and how someone desperate or screwed up will attempt to emulate the power and aesthetics of a supervillain to feel strong. An in-world accidental caricature of the thing he's trying to be. That's interesting. Put him in. I know live action writers veer away from these villains because they feel too silly, but 1, most of them are clinically insane, so their commitment to their motifs does not have to be mood-breaking if you take care in the framing and the costume design. And 2, they can be silly in-world. Like, Batgirl and Robin see Condiment King and they're like, what's up with this weird freak loser? Part 4. Make him a detective and a dad. Batman says thank you, and it's canon. The scene I see people consistently cite when making the case for a kind Batman is the scene between Ace and Batman from Justice League Unlimited, the last episode, I believe, where Ace is dying and Batman stays with her. I wholeheartedly agree. This is one of, if not the most touching moments that demonstrates why having a compassionate Batman works so well. I know a million people have made the case for Batman being compassionate using this scene specifically, and I agree. That said, in the interest of not being too redundant, I'd like to talk about some other examples of kind/father Batman that I think really make it work. Father Batman. Like he's a priest? Why did I say that? Batman the Animated Series / Kevin Conroy Batman is like the best, we know this. But for me it's partially because even though he sometimes gets like testy, he's not prone to yelling and slamming his hands on the table in fits of rage the way some recent iterations are. I kind of see that as a lack of control and composure, and I think a character like Batman is all control and composure, as we've established. Batman the Animated Series Batman has that shit on lock for the most part. I can give some leeway here and there depending on the circumstances, but on the whole, I do not like when he's needlessly mean or bitchy to Alfred or his sidekicks. I actually hate it. I feel like because we know he has social intelligence from his Bruce Wayne moments, and that he's like the most disciplined man to ever live. If he is too mean and nasty to his people too often, it just comes off as malicious and immature, which I think you can figure why that's bad. Funnily enough, the two Bruce Waynes with the least social sense, Lego Batman Bruce and Pattinson's Bruce, are actually some of the nicest to their people. Lego by the end of the film, because that's his arc. Plus, he does show kindness and concern to Alfred and Dick even at the beginning of his arc. And Pattinson just is never actively nasty to Alfred or Selina or his maid or whatever. He's just a little mopey sometimes. At the end of it all, Kevin Conroy Batman is top dog number one, yet to be dethroned. We know this. Additionally, I think Batman should either be kind in a 100% suave, nonchalant way or in a slightly awkward way, no in between. I also think that outside of year one / origin-ish stories, Bats should have at least one kid. On that note, I will say though, the Bat family can in fact be a bit bloated narratively. Hear me out. You have Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, Tim Drake, Damian Wayne, Barbara Gordon, Cassandra Cain, Stephanie Brown, Duke Thomas, and the dog, plus etc., you know? That's 7+ characters that all serve a very similar narrative purpose, and that's not even counting mainstays like Alfred or Gordon. This isn't as big of an issue in the comics because it's excessive, but when it comes to making a Batman movie or a new Batman story, it can be limiting. If you want to write a story that features Damian Wayne and Cassandra Cain as the current sidekicks, you run into some explaining issues when it comes to all the characters that are supposed to have come before that. It can be daunting to use a character like Damian Wayne in a new story / live action movie because he hypothetically carries the baggage of having to include and or explain like 5 more characters. Not just the previous Robins, but Talia, Ra's al Ghul, the League of Assassins, and all of that can be kind of a lot, especially if the movie isn't even about all of that. This results in Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon getting the most adaptations because they are chronologically first in the sidekick timeline, and therefore don't require the same legwork. Dick's story only requires establishing Haley's circus, which is not something that would take a whole lot of work since we got the circus in real life, unlike the League of Assassins, and Barbara is already set up from Commissioner Gordon's existence and doesn't require any new characters being added. My solution to this, honestly, is just do whatever you want. Sort of. I think it's okay to change continuity a bit for the sake of a story if it's in service of making the story and characters better. If you want to do Cassandra Cain Batgirl, just do Cassandra Cain Batgirl. Don't worry about Oracle or the League of Assassins or whatever. Change a couple things, do a slightly reimagined version of her that fits in world. What matters is the core we discussed earlier. But to get into some more examples of Dad Batman or Kind Batman or Detective Batman in instances where I think they work. In Batman Hush, the first scene of that movie when he's on a group call with Alfred and Dick in the beginning.
Clear, Alfred. Update.
None as of yet. Master Bruce, it is acceptable to take one night off. Speak to someone about sports.
You were only supposed to be scouting tonight. It sounds like it went sideways.
Yeah. Found out the shipment was tonight, so thought I'd torch it. Who knew heroin was so flammable?
In Batman Bad Blood.
That's no way to treat a lady.
But on a more serious note, in Young Justice episode 5, when he gives Clark, Superman, a lecture on being a better mentor / father figure to Superboy, before this point Superman has been like really weird and avoidant towards him because of the whole cloning thing, which is understandable, but Bruce literally watches him be distant with Superboy and immediately calls him on the phone to be like, we have got to discuss your parenting skills. After that, in episode 8, when he sees Robin having a hard time / bad day because of the whole leader debacle within the team, he calls him outside to play basketball and do some father-son bonding to make him feel better. And I really like Young Justice Batman. In the Batman animated series that we talked about before, he literally tells Batgirl his secret identity in this show because she was feeling left out, which I think is funny. Not necessarily in character, but hilarious. Throughout the show, he gradually learns a lesson about like letting people in, and he's never too mean to Batgirl or Alfred or Robin, which is important to me. He's even a little bit funny with them.
Batgirl, sir. Perhaps I should equip the Batcave with a doggy door, should Bathound decide to join the gang.
Also, Batgirl and Robin get to be friends, which is kind of something I enjoy a lot, when the sidekicks can hang out with each other outside of Batman. in issue 1018, he takes a little break from being Batman during the night to play catch with the dogs, whom he formally greets by name. And he also does a little detective work in this issue, which is nice. He wishes some cops a Merry Christmas, which, you know, I find the whole idea of a very scary Batman being like, thanks guys, Merry Christmas, bye, to be very charming. In general, I like the 2016 run of Detective Comics because Batman gets to play detective and be moderately nice to the people around him. In Batman Superman World's Finest 2022, he makes a little dad joke. Yeah, I'm pretty lukewarm on Batman in the rest of this run, but I liked this joke. Robin Year One, he actually acts like a big brother / dad to Dick Grayson in this, which I like. They have their rough patches, but overall, the focus on Alfred's perspective does the story a lot of favors. In Batgirl Year One, he's opposed to Barbara becoming Batgirl, but still helps her out and gives her chances to prove herself. His initial strategy isn't berate her, but instead keep an eye on her so she doesn't die and hope she quits on her own. And when she doesn't, and sticks with it and proves herself capable, he lets her in and makes her part of the team. In the 2024 Batman / Robin Year One, first of all, this comic has the fucking sauce. Like, look at this art. But also, Bats is very patient with Dick, especially in the first issue when Dick definitely fucks up. He's on thin ice in the second issue, though. He's better after that. It's not too bad, but it's like they can't resist making him yell at his kids sometimes, which, like, I don't get it. It's minor, and aside from that, he is calm and collected even when Robin, like, definitely fucks up and rushes ahead and does stuff wrong. Plus, the CPS plotline is, one, hilarious, because CPS would be all over this. I can't believe this hasn't come up before. And two, genuinely a good way to put narrative focus on Bruce's role as a father and emphasize that Robin's not just his employee or something, that's his kid. Dick is different from Bruce, and Bruce has to learn that the hands-off approach that worked for his depressed ass doesn't work for everyone. It's an interesting emphasis on the idea that the biggest hurdle for Bruce isn't his lack of experience as a parent, but his lack of experience as a child. It's hard for him to understand Dick's headspace because Bruce was never really a kid. This is what I want from a Batman story. That's not just anger and yelling at your kids. If we're noticing a pattern, it's that I have a clear preference for animated / comic versions of Batman here. Live action, the Batman 2022 is the only one I like. All of this is to say that the Batman has not been a solo act since 1940, and mind you, he was invented in 1939. He knows what it's like to lose your parents and how important parents are, and that's why he keeps taking in strays. Tragic orphan found family trope is the bread and butter here. And also, on the detective note, I think the fact that Batman is one of the very few superheroes that does preventative work is very interesting, and is what sets him apart from the others. The other guys are beating up the guy they found mid-crime and just calling it a day, while Batman is dismantling supply chains. This goes back to what we mentioned earlier with how Batman doesn't just protect from incoming or external threats, but works to make the city of Gotham itself a fundamentally better place. He isn't interested in solely protecting a status quo, he's actually trying to change shit, and the detective / preventative angle is very important to this. This is why him also doing charity as Bruce Wayne is narratively important, because he can do just as much, if not more good as Bruce Wayne, and it doesn't make sense for him as a character to neglect that opportunity. And also, I think the number of Batman Scooby-Doo crossovers that exist should make it very obvious that this is a detective mystery solver character. Basically, I want a movie that's a cross between the Batman 2022 and Knives Out. Also, Grandpa Alfie is very important to me, but I'm really attached to the emotional substance of the relationships between them, and Alfred is so important to me. And the Bat-Kids seeing Alfred as dad number 2 or grandpa matters to me as well. Batman stories all benefit when they're not entirely about him. Seeing the Bat-Kids interact with each other without him is also really important to making the world feel richer and making these characters feel real. I'm a big fan of Steph and Cass. All the combos are good, but it just feels like such a waste not to use these characters to their fullest and have them, like, actually talk to each other. Some of the best Bat Family comics came out of the period of time when Batman was, like, quote-unquote dead in the 2000s. So it was literally just the Bat Fam interacting with each other for all of those runs. I'd like a Tim Drake Batman Robin story. It's one of my favorites, but I know I'm asking a lot because it categorically demands both Dick and Jason to already exist, and live action stuff can't really get away with relying on the audience having pre-existing knowledge to tell a story the way that comics or animated movies can, since their audience is mostly comprised of pre-existing Batman fans, while the live action is usually going for the GP. This is all to say that in the Batman 2, I hope they give that depressed sucker a 9-year-old from the circus, please. This video's gone on long enough. Also, I had to replay so much of Lego Batman to get the killer moth footage because my save data didn't transfer. So here's a bunch of clips of me dorking around in Lego Batman because they're not gonna get used for anything else, and I have to justify the like 9 hours I sank into this game. Motherfucker, are you for real?
It's a shame. Now someone's going to have to fix this. But the good news is I'm out of prison.
Impeccable delivery. That's actually a cool way to swim. Wow, all these people going on about how to integrate cutscenes into games when Lego Batman has had it down pat. Why are these people just in the road? Holy shit. This is worse than Cyberpunk. Fucking Dracula's castle. Whoa. I think I'm here.
And poison ivy in the botanic gardens. Even killer moth, who's apparently tearing up the power station.
Yes.
For real? Wow. Killer moth.
You try to get rid of me, I'll come right back.
Why is he at Arkham? Is he insane? I mean, he could be, I guess. Whoa. Oh. I did not vaporize that motherfucker. Okay.
Just one name each, like Madonna.
Oh, I see. You're down here. Mr. Luthor is expecting you.
Like Madonna. Oh.
What do you think of your presidential candidate?
We love him!
We'll do anything he says! We'll do anything he says! Do anything he says! Vote for him!
Make sure they've all had enough, then we move on to the next campaign stop.
I can't believe I forgot Lego Batman 2 was about election rigging. Hey, I don't know why this game crashes so damn much. I don't know what about the demands of Lego Batman 2 are that my NASA fucking computer can't handle it, but whatever. Wow, this is like Call of Duty almost.